The week that was on Deadline Detroit is made possible in part by Lynette's Shrimp House located in Highland Park. It's Metro Detroit's premier destination serving juicy fried shrimp, fish, and wings, alongside soul food sides and new additions to the menu like turkey tacos and desserts. Located at 13548 Woodward in Highland Park, just north off the Davidson, Lynette's is open for takeaway. Call now, get some Lynette's.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to an episode of The Week That Was. My name is Saeed Khan, and we are joined with five fantastic guests who seem to have emerged from the disorientation of changing time last weekend quite well. Better, perhaps, than some of the people we'll be discussing on today's show and how they fared this week. We have with us attorney Mike Rattay. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Thank you, Saeed.
We also have another attorney, seasoned veteran to the show. We have Todd Perkins.
Hey, good morning or good afternoon. Yeah, it is still morning.
It is still morning. It's afternoon if you haven't changed your clocks back, Todd.
That's what it is.
We have journalist extraordinaire, also maven of many an 80s cover band locally, and recent candidate for the Detroit City Council, ML Eldrick. Thank you for being with us, ML.
I actually happen to have nothing better to do since my recent de-pantsing at the polls. So thank you.
We are grateful and somewhat depressed now, but thank you. We have from Deadline Detroit the always irrepressible Nancy Derringer. Welcome, Nancy.
Oh,
and of course, our maestro from Deadline Detroit, editor of Deadline Detroit, Alan Langle.
Hello, thanks for having me.
In his pithy way of welcoming everybody. So let's just jump right into this. One of the big news items, of course, has been what some would describe as the kangaroo court climate of the Kyle Rittenhouse trial that is underway. There have been more than a few scrutinizing moments of the judge in this case. There have been a fair share of histrionics. So who wants to analyze both what has transpired and where you see this case and this trial going? Mike?
Well, what I've been able to read and what I've been able to see on like MSNBC, clearly it seems to me the judge is playing to the cameras. And I think the prosecutor's done a horrible job. I mean, the guy doesn't even know how to ask a proper question on cross-examination, which is not unusual because most prosecutors don't know how to cross-examine a witness. And then, of course, on the other side, Kyle Rittenhouse, he's just a kid. His brain hasn't fully developed. In my opinion, his mother's the one who should have been prosecuted. But that's another story. But I think the prosecution screwed this case up, plain and simple.
Well, I mean, brain might not be fully developed, but allegedly the trigger finger was quite
right.
active.
Yeah, look, okay, the boo-hoo thing on the witness stand was totally contrived. I don't think anybody that thinks differently, Todd and I have been through scores and scores and scores of trials. We can sniff out a fake cry better than anybody, and that's how I viewed it. But again, I think the prosecution completely screwed this case up. And, the judge, obviously, in my mind, was playing to the cameras in some ways. But, I mean, he had a right to be pissed off because the prosecution obviously tried to backdoor some evidence that the judge said you cannot bring in. And Todd and I see that all the time. But very rarely around here do they get called out on it like this judge. But I think he went a little bit over the top, in my opinion.
So Todd, I mean, this even brought came to the attention of professional basketball player and amateur body language expert LeBron James, who felt the need to tweet about Rittenhouse's boohoo moment. Do you think it worked with the jury? Is this going to be an acquittal?
Well, so I don't recall. I know in the McMichael's trial, which is the decedent is Aubrey Matthews. Aubrey. I'm sorry. In that case, I know that's one black juror. But I was saying something about what Mike was just saying. We're grizzled attorneys, I mean, and everybody up here has a lot of experience. Every person, whether a lawyer or not, from Nancy to ML to Alan, you guys all have a lot of courtroom experience. So is it something that is fake to us versus that jury that's going to look at a 17 or 19-year-old kid sitting up there crying? So yeah, to me, it was a bunch of crap. But to that jury, you know, and at the end of the day, how much of this conversation, and that's what I'm not able to see, is how much of the berating of the prosecution is occurring in the front of that jury. And that, you know, so that would go further to denigrate their position and their credibility with that jury. Now, but I do think the judge is a clown. I think he's an absolute buffoon. You know, he's sitting here, and I say that because I'm not going to Wisconsin, and especially not going to his court right now. But, you know, as God may have it, I may get a case in front of him tomorrow. But nonetheless, you know, he's a guy who's made decisions about keeping out information, calling it propensity evidence and not allowing it in there. But the very theory of the prosecution is that this guy is a person who is, this is almost classic 404B evidence. And what I mean by that is 404B evidence in the state of Michigan is that, you know, there's no lack of surprise. There's a scheme that's in place. And we're not saying that he acted in conformity with action that he did before, but there's reasons why he can't disavow himself of this behavior because this is a plan that he's initiated. And you know, you think about it, this is a kid that, you know, then you don't have other evidence coming in about things that he did post this action. So, you know, we have a lot of different things that are going on in this case, but, you know, he had to, I think, you know, and I think Mike might agree with me, he had to testify. He had to testify in this case where you have a self-defense claim, you know, because he doesn't have anybody else there. You have video. Yeah, you can rely on the video. I just think he was prepared. I mean, for as good as I do think he has good lawyers on the defense side, but as good as they are, I don't think they did well in preparing this kid to testify.
No,
I thought I watched some of the testimony. I thought he did. I mean, he's not a professional on the stand, but I thought he did pretty well. I thought he came off as like sincere, that I just want to do good. The scary thing is that a guy basically comes up there as a vigilante with an illegal assault weapon and initially says, I'm here to protect the car lot, and then starts walking off the lot and going around and trying to act like a police officer, trying to like put out fires and calm down people, and he gets in confrontations, and look, the jury's going to say these guys were coming at him, but they were trying to take the gun away from him. He was an active shooter. It's so criminal, this whole thing, and he's being portrayed as this like Boy Scout who was just wanted to do good. And you know, there's a reason. Look, police officers are trained to handle crowds. They have all these weapons short of the lethal weapons. They have mace or whatever, or you know, pepper gas, tear gas. They have rubber bullets. They have a lot of, and they have riot gear, so they can, you know, deal with some of the stuff. But here's a guy who only has a gun. He has an assault weapon, and it's scary. The whole thing is just crazy. But I think he's gonna. I'll be shocked if it's at least not a hung jury.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that, Alan.
Nancy?
I just want to say the fix is in. He's going to be acquitted. And fortunately, he has a bright future based on his on the stand crying technique in a community theater. I really see him like just blossoming there, you know, with his like, ooh. It reminded me of a murder case in Columbus where I used to work many years ago. Where the cops said they knew the husband did it when they went to inform him that his wife had been found strangled in a parking garage, and he actually said, "Boo hoo hoo." He said the actual boo hoo hoo. So that was
but I don't think he has I don't think he has a career in community theater. Where are the tears? I mean, you know, you can actually produce tears when you're able to, you know, produce some kind of.
Well, he's going to have to take some method acting classes, you know, the sense memory thing, but that's where he's headed. So
one way or another, I go back to what Mike said. This case is screwed up no matter what. If he's found guilty, he's got a great appeal because of the antics of the prosecution. that I don't know if they're ready to I don't know if they weren't ready to proceed to go to trial, but some of the behavior of the prosecution, even though I think that, like, I agree with Mike totally, the judge went over the top on his berating of them. So that is it's a problematic case whether he's convicted or not.
No doubt.
So ML, Todd had mentioned the Ahmaud Arbery case, which is also going on down in Georgia, and I read about how one of the defense attorneys said that I think Al Sharpton was in the courtroom, and he says, "Well, I hope there's not going to be a whole line of black preachers coming in because that's going to be problematic. Who's next? Jesse Jackson and whatnot." What is going on now in these cases? I mean, it seems as though the race card is being deployed pretty liberally.
Well, that wasn't the first ridiculous statement that attorney's made. He made some comment earlier in the trial about I think of the composition of the jury, and as I understand it, it's all white guys. There might be one black juror there. I don't know what's going on in that jurisdiction, but I don't know how you have an all-white jury trying to decide a case where the all-white prosecution didn't see a crime committed in the first place, when the video seems to show that a man was hunted down and killed in cold blood. A lot of these things are being played on a bigger stage, and I don't know if it's an attempt to sway the public, who will then turn to friends that they have on the jury and try and influence them. But, when you have a defense attorney or any attorney who's arguing about who's sitting in the gallery, I don't know whether that's a sign that they think their case is in trouble or that they're just a straight up cracker.
Do you think part of it is that everybody now is running for office?
What happened
You said what now, Saeed?
I said, do you think that everybody now, defense attorneys and everybody else, is running for office, that they're looking beyond the case to how they can go ahead and leverage their way up to the Senate or the governorship in Georgia?
Well, I mean, you're talking about Georgia. So to ML's point, I mean, he asked, what do you mean about a bunch of white guys deciding this black guy's fate? I mean, ML, he's in Georgia, you know what I'm saying? So, and not Atlanta, he's not in Fulton County,
right.
But no, what's more egregious is my understanding that there was something called a Batson challenge that was made in this trial, where the defense attorneys, they moved as hard as they could with all efforts to get rid of all of the black people that were on the jury. And I think the prosecution made a Batson challenge is basically saying you're trying to vet this jury and cleanse this jury based on race or some other impermissible purpose. In this case, it would be race. And I think it was denied. It was denied, but but it left a chilling effect on this. Look, we got a jury with one black person, and now that lawyer is really ostracizing that black person. But what that lawyer doesn't seem, that idiot, that buffoon, number one, see what he doesn't also take into effect that there are a lot of white people that don't think like him. There are a lot of white people who will be offended by his behavior. I'm sure that statement happened outside of the presence of the jury, but his demeanor, there's, I am not concerned. I do believe that black person is in an inauspicious position without any help from other white people on that jury. But there are going to be white people who are much more offended by this action and this behavior of these people, and will feel authorized and even compelled to speak loudly about it, and they're going to speak with their verdict. I do believe these guys are going to get convicted, though. I do.
Well, moving over to another area of legal representation abound, we have a whole new legion of subpoenas going out to former staffers and officials in the Trump administration. That great former empath-in-chief, if we are to listen to the audio of his interview with Jonathan Karl and throwing former Vice President Pence under the bus. But we find then that people like Stephen Miller, Kayleigh McEnany, and a whole host of others, including people who may not necessarily have even been working in the White House, so therefore cannot claim executive privilege, are now being called to testify in front of the House committee. Is this yet another moment where Bullwinkle pulls the rabbit out of his hat and says that this is where Trump is in real trouble, as opposed to last week when he was in real trouble?
Well,
and I can tell from all of your fatigue that
I mean, look, we could have a whole show just about, how all these Trumpites just don't have, they don't care about the rule of law. They think they could just thumb their nose at Congress and ignore a subpoena. And my question is what is Merrick Garland doing? Why is it taking him 3 weeks to issue indictments against Steve Bannon? Why is he taking so long? That's my question, because it's a no-brainer. The guy should be held in contempt of Congress. You don't need.
Guy said.
What is Merrick Garland waiting on? Okay,
exactly.
Unless he's waiting on all these other morons from Trump's administration to do the same thing and indict them all together. That's my question.
Amen. Amen. I just want to stand off in the corner and say that over and over again. That's exactly true. Call me.
Nancy, why the hesitancy, Nancy, for Merrick Garland?
I have no idea. I don't know Merrick Garland. I don't share a pillow talk with him. I don't understand. I think if the Democrats have a real enthusiasm problem going into this past election and next year. And I think if they don't do something to ramp it up pretty fast, I think they're going to be caught flat-footed. And the economy is doing okay, but we still have a lot of pandemic-related glitches to go through. But if they really want to energize the base, they're going to have to start cracking down on these people, because they are absolutely thumbing their nose at the rule of law. And it's like, does this either apply or doesn't it? So.
I think the Democrats are going to need big shipments of Red Bull and just, drinking all day and ramp it up. Because I agree. Like Mark Meadows apparently didn't show up for a subpoena, and now they're going to go after him. But it's like they have to go after. There's no as Mike points out, there's no really thinking about it. It's just they're in violation.
Behind bars. It worked on Matty Maroon.
Right.
He'll only spend a day there, maybe, but make him eat a bologna sandwich, and maybe spend a night there, and then we can
a little bologna sandwich and Kool-Aid.
If the Justice Department,
but here's the thing. I think Nancy's right, and because there's a time sensitive thing with this committee, and if they keep on dragging their feet, it almost seems like, I don't know.
They're looking up.
I'm a Democrat, but the Democrats are doing it again, because I know if it was Republicans, they would have had these guys hogtied and tarred and feathered by now. If that was the case on the other side, we seem to be so. I understand we want to be meticulous in what we do, but something, we're not wrong. They're not wrong in what they're doing. These guys were criminals. We had criminals running the White House for the last 4 years. That's just as simple as it is. And, we want to live, but I do believe that there's some kind of, again, I used this word earlier, a chilling effect, that acknowledging that there was criminals, because, everybody is still an American, and we still recognize if we tear this down, we're left to pick up the pieces. And I think they're trying to dismantle it rather than just blow it up. I'm the blow it up guy. Just blow it, put it, like we said, lock them up. And, that guy who's up today, who's supposed to, who's up today, who was supposed to present.
Isn't it Meadows?
It's Meadows, yeah.
Yeah, Meadows didn't show up.
Present today.
Meadows didn't show up, and now they're going to supposedly go after him.
Yeah, but but it's been 3 weeks since, what's his name?
Bannon.
That dirtbag. Yeah, it's been 3 weeks since he was supposed to present.
Yeah,
Maybe
it's not a difficult
confusion.
case. It's not a difficult case. It's not a debatable case.
Listen, if one of us decided that we were going to just ignore a congressional subpoena or a subpoena from a court, we'd be locked up within 24 hours, okay? So I don't understand what Garland's doing, okay? If he's afraid, okay, to take action against these Trump idiots, okay, and they're just going to become more emboldened.
Yep.
Okay. And this whole argument that he's afraid to piss off the Trump base. Who cares?
Who cares? I'm totally with that. Who cares?
Who cares?
Yeah.
We're either going to have a rule of law or we're not. And if we're not, then say goodbye to the country we all grew up in, because it's no longer going to exist.
It's sailing away right now.
Well, yeah.
You're watching
There's no question it's on its way out, but we have a chance to try to save it, okay, by at least enforcing the laws that we have.
Well, given Nancy's Doris Day movie reference, I thought we were going back in time, but all right.
Pillow talk. Okay.
Yeah.
I think Republicans are just confused. 1 minute Democrats say we don't want any psychopaths coming to Congress. The next minute we're sending subpoenas so psychopaths come to Congress. I mean,
Right.
Meadows, Bannon, these guys are psychopaths. They're sociopaths.
Well, speaking of sociopaths, ML, I mean,
Well, wait a minute. I don't like that transition.
I know. It sounds like we're talking about Elric.
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have inhaled there, but no, actually, I was going to talk about Congressman Gosar with his video of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a fellow congressperson, and now spasms about whether or not there's going to be a censure of his fantasizing about killing her. Is this what we've now been reduced to in the hallowed halls of Congress?
Look, the guy's own family hates his guts and doesn't think he should be in Congress, which actually they should want him in Congress because that's as far away from Arizona as they can possibly get him. So I think we already know what the deal is with this guy. But this air of collegiality that Congress used to be blamed for, where you couldn't tell the Republicans and Democrats apart and all this other stuff. Boy, oh boy, we've gone from Republicans complaining that things are getting hostile because somebody took some shots at them on the baseball field to now they're packing heat. They're threatening the lives of their colleagues. They're doing cartoons. I mean, yeah, I don't like the buddy system of politics that we see too often in so many different legislatures. But this guy, I mean, throw his ass out. Enough of this.
The Republicans have formed this cabal they will not go after. I mean, there's no sense of decency. Why is not Congress saying this is unacceptable behavior? The Republicans
Because it is acceptable behavior to them. To
Correct.
What they consider unacceptable behavior is voting to impeach Donald Trump.
Yes.
Right.
Voting for an infrastructure bill that could transform this country.
Right.
And acting like something other than an a-hole.
Right on.
Well,
Right
there's also a certain amount of cannibalism. I mean, Fred Upton's office has recorded an uptick in the number of death threats and blaming Marjorie Taylor Greene for publishing his phone number as well as others who dared to be seen or dared to be heretics compared to the Trump agenda. I mean, it seems as though it's kind of crazy all over.
Did you?
Well, I'm going to publish Marjorie Taylor Greene's phone number right here. It's IAMNUTS. Just everybody call right now.
Do you have an area code on that, ML?
It's 911 IAMNUTS.
Did you listen to the voicemail, the actual recording that was released by Upton's office? That is chilling. That voice is chilling. Somebody is going to be shot behind this stuff. And I don't know, I don't know if it's going to be this vote, it's going to be another vote or something, but I really do feel like we are on the brink of these people going insane. And they're the ones who have the giant guns. And
Well, you got Proud Boys showing up at school board meetings to intimidate school board members.
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly. You've seen that clip from I think last month of the guy at some town hall saying, "When do we get to use the guns?"
Right.
I mean, that's it's going
and
to
he
happen.
was serious too.
Yes,
He was serious. He was not screwing around.
No, he wasn't. He was absolutely serious. So
and
when it happens,
I heard when the Proud Boys went to that school, they went into the wrong room and they were looking around. They're saying, "What are all these things here? What are these weird things here?" And somebody said, "They're books."
Right.
Although you're going to say the alphabet, but so Alan, I mean, who do you see being a voice of reason to actually be able to step up and tell people to come back from the brink? Are we going to have to wait for hologram Reagan or?
Well, I mean, I think Cheney. I mean, Cheney. There's so few, Mitt Romney. I don't know that he has a consistent backbone to be able to stand up. I mean, he has the voice sometimes of reason, and then he suddenly goes into the fold because no one wants to lose their total membership with the club. But Lynn Cheney seems to be willing to stand up and call Trump.
But she's such a lone voice, Alan. I mean, there's no Republican other than maybe you could count on one hand who's willing to put country over party. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. And this last gasp effort by all these white people trying to hang on to power. I mean, just look at all the redistricting that's going on in these blue, in these battleground states. Right. I mean, how are Democrats going to win an election? Okay. It's almost impossible now in some of these states.
I mean, it's so insane that the few Republicans who did vote for the infrastructure bill are under attack, and the Republicans are saying they're taking their committees should be taken away and stuff like that. It's like these people are voting for the best interest of America, and that is apparently not the best interest of the Republican Party. And that's really what it gets down to is the Republican Party does not care about anything but the Republican Party. And if it happens to benefit America, great. If not,
they only care about power, Alan. You know that. That's the only thing that they care about. They have no agenda whatsoever other than hanging on to power and suppressing black and brown people and the rest of us who, actually care about this country and all the people in this country, not just the white people.
Well, I mean, and they're playing on the fact that they're going to be energized to go to the polls. And they're playing on the fact that we're going to be on our heels when it comes to those issues. I mean, that we're, complacent, we're not involved, there's a certain amount of apathy. I mean, these people are fired up. You know what I'm saying? It's just, people, it's like you see a hockey game, Mike, you see guys with less talent beat teams that have more talent just because of the fact that they're just energized and they want to do it, and it's just like any kind of sport. This is Mortal Kombat. This is just, and
the Democrats don't play. They don't look at it that way.
No,
I mean, and I got my problems with the Democratic Party because they're not going on the offensive. They're laying back, and they're getting run over.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think? What do you think they're waiting for, Mike?
I have no idea.
I just thought that there's a few people and some may disagree, but I think people like James Carville are guys who are like know how to fight. It's like Al Franken before he became a senator. He wrote the book about Rush Limbaugh. Rush Limbaugh was a big fat idiot. He was one of the few voices at the time. The Democrats were so wimpy, and he came out, and they have to fight back. I mean, the Republicans, they have such loose cannons, and who are the voices of that party. It's
we don't spend enough time in this country celebrating that Rush Limbaugh is dead. And I think we should all kind of maybe consider starting cocktail hour 20 minutes early today.
No kidding.
And have
what's even more disgusting is that idiot Trump gave him the Medal
of Freedom. Yeah. He gave the Medal of Freedom to a lot of people.
If I had one of those medals, I'd give it back. I don't want to be in the same club with that asshole.
Well, he's dead. So
Nancy, you're not going to call that rush hour, are you?
Yeah, we should. We should call that rush hour. It's
rush hour. Wow. Okay.
So Todd, you mentioned the word apathy when it comes to the political arena. There's a possibility that it seems there might be some apathy when it comes to vaccines now. And Michigan has the dubious distinction of the second highest COVID rate. Yesterday, it was reported that we had 6,200 plus cases over 2 days, somewhere around over 150 deaths. And it seems as though in some places, especially up in Traverse City, the hospitals have reached peak capacity more than even peak foliage color. So are we just becoming then acclimated? Is this just now we can shrug our shoulders? I mean, there was a time not too long ago where 3,000 cases would have us in a panic. It would have the governor looking to invoke emergency powers, which she can't now. But where are we going now with COVID-19 and with these rates going back up?
I think we're, right now, I mean, the prediction is, look, people are starting to spend more time indoors. I find it fascinating, the numbers. Last week we had some daily numbers of 2 days in a row, Thursday and Friday. We had daily numbers of over 5,000 a day. And if you go to restaurants, walk by a bar or something, people are mingling. People are not wearing masks. People are acting as if, they're ignoring the numbers here. And the thing is, I mean, I'm super cautious. I'm triple vaxxed. I wear a mask. I try to avoid, crowded places. I mean, I go grocery shopping, but I think this, they're predicting the numbers. We're going into Thanksgiving. We're going into Christmas. There's going to be more gatherings and stuff like that. I mean, we can only hope that there's going to be more people vaccinated, but there's such a pushback toward that. We have a fairly low vaccination. There's different figures on that. I think our vaccination rates are full vaccination. The state is saying 60%. I think it's lower than that. But
it's pretty pathetic. And at this point, at some point, we're going to have to say the people who are choosing to remain unvaccinated, who are still, by and large, the ones who are being hospitalized. I mean, if we're talking about cases, it's one thing. We're talking about hospitalizations, it's quite another. It's the unvaccinated who are leading who are going into the hospital with COVID. And at some point, we just have to say to ourselves, I sent you the lifeboat, I sent you the helicopter, and you didn't take it. And now here you are in a prone position in an ICU fighting for your life. I mean, yesterday I saw what is perhaps the most unbelievable self-own ever, which was some cop in San Francisco who was on leave because he refused to get vaccinated, died of COVID. And all I could hear in my head was the Curb Your Enthusiasm theme, because it was like, there you go. You just stepped in it. I heard an interview with Dr. Fauci this morning on the New York Times podcast that gave me some hope. And he seemed to believe that he was talking about Israel because he pays attention to this stuff. He said, Israel is about a month ahead of us on everything throughout this pandemic. And he said, based on what he's seeing in Israel, he thinks the magic key, beyond getting more people to take the shot in the first place, but he said, the booster really does seem to work to incur long-lasting, really more bulletproof protection. But again, like Alan said, we should all be living like Alan, which is, careful, mindful, not cowering in our apartments and houses like the right-wingers say, but just, with common sense. And we're not doing it. So I don't want to dominate this one.
Well, the one thing I'll say about the shot,
you end up in a hospital. I got no sympathy for you.
Exactly. Me neither.
The reality is the shots should have been a triple shot from the beginning. So now they're calling it a booster, but the reality is that it really, if you talk to some people in the medical field, it should have been 3 shots from the beginning.
That's hindsight at this point.
Yeah, and, we're learning. Look, we're learning. Yeah. But and the thing is, as Israel is ahead, they have been ahead on vaccinations. They were the first to be pushing for the booster, and people were screaming here, "Oh my God, we don't have enough evidence." Well, I'm sorry, but look, Israel's every bit as sophisticated as the U.S., if not more. So, and they're ahead of us. And so, as Dr. Fauci wisely does, he's looking at Israel to see where they're at.
Right.
Well, these smaller countries seem to have a good scalability. I mean, along with Israel, Singapore just announced that if you want to be unvaccinated, and I think that they have an 85% vaccination rate already, but if you're going to be unvaccinated, then it's going to be on your dime. You are not going to get the benefit of the social medicine system that is there. Great Britain is announcing plans to change the definition of fully vaccinated to update it to be meaning you're also boosted. It's not just the original dosage. So they're taking the necessary plans because Europe is starting to have their own issues with rises in COVID, especially in Germany. And we, of course, have now opened our borders to overseas travelers coming in with not the same kind of vigilance that it is if you're traveling from the U.S. elsewhere. First of all, we don't have any apps that we use in order to verify or to contact trace. We're still using pencils and paper. So there's, I think, still some challenges that are left on that particular issue.
Saeed,
it's interesting.
You pay more attention to the stuff than I do, probably. What's going on in Germany? Because Germans are usually, these are people who generally follow orders. So,
Well, far be it for me to stereotype the Teutonic people, but there's a similar level of truculence, Nancy, in Germany, of people who just simply want to defy.
You can't make me. Yeah,
it's their form of resistance. Walking in lockstep didn't really work well for them in 2 world wars, so maybe they might want to change the script.
I just remember like years ago when I was more interested in the efficacy of birth control. I remember reading some studies, and they said that whenever they do a study of a birth control method that requires you to use it correctly every single time, that the German responses generally get thrown out because Germans never fail to use it correctly every single time, and so it doesn't always give you like an accurate sample of how the rest of the world behaves. But that's interesting.
But I have so I have kids in school, and now they approach with people who are vaccinated. They approach it differently. My son was exposed, and I said, well, does he have to stay home? They said, no, he's vaccinated. The other people are vaccinated. We just needed to know, because there were 4 kids who weren't vaccinated who got in his school who got COVID. And so I said, well, what about the banquet? Do we need to go forward with him not come to his cross country banquet? They're like, no, just stay 3 feet away. I mean, the rules and the governing how and the protocols are so much more lax if people are vaccinated. Even then, we take another higher tone to that and more serious tone to that because, I mean, it is serious. But, I just didn't get, I'm going to go get my, I want to get a PCR. I want to get a test. And as soon as I just want to make sure I'm not positive or anything like that, but I'm going to go because I wouldn't want to go get my booster shot when I'm positive, what I'm saying? So that's the only but I can't wait to get mine. So
I think Todd, the Biden administration has announced that it's going to facilitate the ability of getting lateral rapid tests out there. It's something that's already happened in Europe. I know that I'm going to be going to London next month, and they've said you don't need to be tested before you leave. But you do need to, within 2 days of arrival, take a rapid test. And it's really simple. You have to order it before you leave, and you have to have evidence of that, a reference code. But you can have that test sent to your hotel or whatever address you're staying, or you can click and collect. So they seem to definitely have it on. By the way, Todd, I mean, you're talking about in your kids' schools about the 3 feet social distancing. Back in my day, I think that was called the Catholic school prom. That was the distance we had to maintain with whoever we were supposed to be dancing with.
Yeah, we're at a Catholic school too, so yeah, you're right. It's all boys school.
Make room for Jesus.
So I'd like to.
I think it's a Holy Ghost.
So if it's okay, I'd be curious to get everyone's opinion. We talked a little bit about Dana Nessel, her little confessional about too much booze at the game, and how that is that going to be no big deal, or is that going to be a political issue in her campaign?
Yeah, so just for our audience, in case they themselves might have been similarly inebriated or might be from out of state and they haven't been catching the news. Attorney General Dana Nessel was at the University of Michigan State football game, and apparently word has now gotten out, as well as some photo evidence, that she was a little bit worse for the wear. Her head was clearly down, and by her own admission, she was quite drunk. That has now become a bit of a political football, and it is certainly getting some press. Where do you see the implications and the ramifications of this going?
Mr. Elric go ahead. Yeah.
No, well, I was just going to say, I don't have a dog in this fight. My feeling about her being overserved is it happens to everyone who drinks from time to time. That I don't blame her for, but I think going back and kind of touching on what we were talking about before with Merrick Garland, it is time for the Democrats to understand what they're up against and stop making forced errors or unforced errors, I should say. And that was absolutely an unforced error. It's up there with Gretchen Whitmer, taking the private plane and turning that into a 1 month story instead of a 1 day story. These candidates have got to be on their best behavior and stop handing the Republicans a club to beat them with. So that's me. Elric, he's the MSU guy.
It was a couple of Bloody Marys. I mean, come on, ML.
Well, so it's hardly news that a Wolverine can't hold their booze. So that didn't surprise me. But this is going to be used against her, and the reason why she got in front of it is because she found out that Republicans were trying to get some documentation of this. And I think folks will remember when Cliff Taylor, I believe it was Cliff Taylor, who was on the Supreme Court, the state Supreme Court, appeared to be asleep on the bench, and he was run off the Supreme Court. That commercial played over and over again, and it cost him his spot on the bench. And I think there was some question as to whether or not that video was taken out of context or not, but that doesn't matter because perception is reality. I say that as someone who just got drubbed in a city council race because of a perception issue, but that's going to be used against her, and this happens to her at an absolutely terrible time. Kelly Rossman McKinney, who was her spokeswoman for the Attorney General's office, but who is one of the most talented public relations professional in recent Michigan history, has been fighting cancer for years and just lost that battle at about the same time this issue was coming up. So at a time when she needs the best advice she can possibly get, her advisor's gone, she tries to get in front of it. Then she tries to get in front of it in kind of a joking way, like she's not really taking it seriously and apologizing to the guy in the seat behind her. Full credit for trying to head this thing off, but very clumsy and a terrible moment for her at a time when she really needed the best advice she could get. And that advisor, sadly, because Kelly was a wonderful woman, just passed. So this all comes together at a bad time, but I think this issue is only going to get worse for the Attorney General.
Mike, I mean, this is Michigan. This isn't Utah. There is a certain amount of libation that is sort of baked into the proverbial cake here. How is this going to play with voters, do you think?
Well, I agree with everything ML said. I mean, the Republicans are going to bang her over the head with this thing. Okay. And, and not to take issue with what Nancy said, that, yeah, everybody once in a while, of course, I don't drink anymore. But the bottom line is that you're the Attorney General of the state of Michigan. Okay. If you want to get drunk in your house. Okay. Don't go to a football game with 100,000 people around you and be shit-faced. That's just stupid. Beyond stupid. So, she's certainly entitled to have a cocktail if that's what she chooses to do. But use your head, lady. Okay? If you want to get drunk in your house where nobody can see you.
I mean, the potential for her to have been throwing up in the stadium, which was a possibility. You could imagine all the people pulling out their phones and taking pictures, and definitely been the end.
Not only that, but you got to look at the fact that what she's up against. I mean, this is a hotly contested state. I mean, she is a controversial figure, public elected figure, and she's not in she's not in a state that she's not Bernie Sanders in Vermont. Bernie Sanders can pretty much do whatever he wants in Vermont. She cannot, and I think it just got beyond her, and because personally, she's being responsible about how she conducted herself as far as not driving and different things like that. That's how I look at it. But I can't escape what Mike's words were about, this is, it can be considered stupid considering the the tangential circumstances with which she's facing and which she got an election next year. Don't think that that's not going to come up through and throughout that election. I mean, that's going to be almost like her 47%.
Yeah, you're going to see ads that say Michigan deserves sober leadership, and there's going to be a picture of Dana Nessel and Tom Leonard, who got smoked the last time he ran for attorney general. All of a sudden has an issue that's really going to resonate, because one of the things that I've always admired about Dana Nessel and admire about her to this day is she's an outsider. She didn't come up through the party system. She's someone who probably has almost as many Democrats who don't like her as Republicans who don't like her. So I suspect there are people all over the political map who are rubbing their palms together thinking, here we go. And while I think I'd be surprised to see the Democratic Party not renominate her as Attorney General. Because remember, there's no primaries. These are party choices. This is the smoke-filled room that puts these constitutional officers on the ballot. I expect her to be retained as the Democratic candidate, but I wouldn't be surprised if she has to fight a little rearguard action against some Democrats who've been saying, okay, here's our chance to get someone who we can control a little bit more in the Attorney General's office. And,
they're gonna make some ads. Yes, there are gonna be some ads about this, but I think you guys are maybe overweighting them a little bit. This is a pretty hard drinking state. Everybody who has been to a tailgate knows what tailgate parties are like. You're right, Mike. You want her to, if she wants to get drunk, do it at home. But the great paradox of drinking is you have one drink and, then you want to have another one. And it's not like something where you go, oh no, I better wait until I get home to do this. I mean, drinking is its own reward. But, I don't see this as the crime of the century. She didn't throw up on anybody. She acted responsibly when she realized she had been overserved. There aren't any photographs that we know of yet of her being, carried off in a wheelchair. I think the Republicans, if they make too big of a deal of this, are going to come off sounding like a bunch of prudes. I mean, she is a very funny woman. I think you can tell that she used to do stand-up comedy. You can tell that from her statement. I still think that her absolute number one public statement, though, was the one where she said, if anybody tries to repeal same-sex marriage, they're going to have to pry my wedding ring off of my finger. But that's because I've gained 12 pounds since I got married. So.
Once again, though, Nancy, I think you're the victim of being too practical.
Well, maybe so. I mean, nobody's hiring me to be their political advisor. I'll give you that.
No, but you're saying things that actually absolutely make sense and resonate with me.
Okay.
Because I feel the same way. But I'm looking at it from the perspective of, they will take things that are totally insane and look at January 6th. They took something that was totally insane. You're talking about these people who will take things, and what they do, those are the fringe people. That's what's become the face of the Republican Party. And don't strike me down. Now that I'm looking at Cheney as being the true face of a real Republican, she, and angry as she may be, but at the same time, that's what it is. But the fringe, they cause the base to move over to them, it just even so slightly. So
they may well serve this. I'm just not sure anybody wants to eat it. That's all I'm saying.
Oh no, but they're gonna serve it because they got nothing else.
Yeah,
they got nothing else. They got no quality. They got no acumen. They got no intelligence. They have nothing. No suave anything.
Look, this is no slam dunk like Gary Hart and Donna Rice on The Monkey Business. I mean, this is completely different, isn't it? And by the way, Nancy, if you are political advisor for her campaign, make sure her ad buy isn't wedged between a Budweiser ad and a Hennessy ad. I'm thinking that probably wouldn't work very well. Well, I want to move on to a very sad and serious issue that hits home here in the Metro Detroit area. Journalist Danny Fenster was earlier in the week charged with treason and terrorism in Myanmar, where he's been detained for several months. Now comes word that he was in fact convicted by a court there and sentenced to 11 years in prison. And I know, Alan, you've been writing about this, and it's definitely a very personal issue to you. So I was wondering if you could be kind to provide some insight about this. And also, is there a pathway to bringing Danny home?
Well, I think there's no question. I mean, the family, isn't going to give up on just letting. I mean, it's such an absurd case here. Here it is. They're charging him with being part of Myanmar Now, a publication he had previously worked for. He left in July of 2020. The military took over in February 1st of 2021 this year, and then banned Myanmar Now, which you can still read Myanmar Now online. I think what you're seeing, a lot of the journalists in Myanmar are working from remote locations and some outside of the country. So they're still reporting on this, but they proved in court clearly that he did not work for the publication, and yet they convicted him of all these charges surrounding that. And so I think we can all hope that there's some justice, because I mean, it's clearly the whole procedure is just a farce. I mean, there's no justice there. So I think there's going to have to be continued pressure on the Myanmar government to come around and cut the bullshit.
So one of the entities, if you will, that has probably the best leverage on the Myanmar regime is China. Do you see this then as being one of those occasions where the Biden administration should put it on the table? I mean, obviously, Biden and Xi Jinping recently came to an agreement on a climate change accord. Is this yet another one of those items that should be there when it comes to bilateral talks?
Yeah. No.
I was just going to say, yes. I mean, it's time for us to quit fucking around with this. I mean, this is an American citizen. He is a gentle man. He has never, I don't believe he's ever committed an act of violence against anyone. No. He's a very talented writer and reporter, and he was doing his job. And if we believe in the things that we say we believe in, it's time for us to either lean on Myanmar, and I realize we don't have much leverage with them, but ask China to lean on him. I mean, hand them a marker if we have to, but this guy needs to be out of prison. And, if this conviction was some sort of thing where they did it, to save face, and it's going to be a time served, they'll release him in, another week or so. That's fine. That's a fine outcome too, but he needs to be out. I spent part of my morning writing a letter to Mitt Romney, because he's on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, asking him to please focus on this. So that's just me.
I mean, there's no lever that should not be pulled.
He'll make his way out. Were you saying something, Alan? I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say there's no lever that should not be pulled, that we should be pulling every lever possible.
Yeah.
And Nancy's absolutely right. I mean, I've known Danny since birth. And, look, he's just a good kid. He's just, he's not a kid anymore. He's 37 years old, but he's a good journalist. He's done some freelance pieces for Deadline Detroit. He's a smart guy. He reads a lot of books. And he's a gentle soul, but he believes in justice, and he went there attracted to the fact that there was a lot of injustice there in Myanmar, and he wanted to be part of the journalism there.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, he's fallen victim to all the injustices there. But
yeah.
But I think they're going to get him out. But I look at his situation. Not even obviously not in a comical way, but it's almost like a movie. Like, you look at these gangster movies, and I look at the United States as a gangster, China as a gangster, and Myanmar a low player underneath China. And it's going to be about what the United States is willing to give up to China to make them move to do this.
Right.
And I think that's all they're waiting on. Doing. I don't think it's going to be one of those situations like who was that young man in North Korea that they beat to death and they sent him home dying. I don't think it'll be like that. I pray that it's not. You know what I'm saying? But I do think that get off the pot. I'm talking about the diplomats for the United States and the people in power in the United States, and do something that really deserves. I mean, this is a crime against humanity.
Right.
And if we want to be Americans, this is a crime against the First Amendment. I don't like sometimes seeing you guys in some of these stories. I'm talking about, you know, not Mike, but I'm talking about you guys who are journalists and reporters. But I do love the fact that you're protected by the First Amendment. And if we're Americans, use the First Amendment as the impetus to go over there and get this guy. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Because he's only doing, what in this country is, I mean, the person who locked him up would be locked up for what they've done to him over there.
Right.
Well, I think there was that movie with Richard Gere a bunch of years ago called Red Corner, dealing with China. I think it's also important to remember that there's well over 100 journalists around the world who are imprisoned. And perhaps one of the biggest challenges is that China doesn't seem to be exactly a major cheerleader for press freedom.
Right. Exactly.
And sometimes on some of our less than perfect days, we wonder if
hey, we have a great deal in common with China, and I think that it's just a question of which string do you have to pull, what do you have to give them. So anyway,
good point. Okay, we are at that point in the show where we are going to our next phase. Michael, take it away.
And now it's time for Deadline Detroit's nominees for Schmuck of the Week.
It never gets old. Who would like to go first with their Schmuck of the Week?
Go ahead.
Who?
Nancy, go ahead.
Okay. Marco Rubio is my Schmuck of the Week. And not for the usual reasons, but because he has apparently been taken by this completely insane faux sickness that has overtaken us, which is whining about the time change, and has introduced something called the Sunshine Protection Act, which would make daylight saving time permanent rather than having the twice yearly spring forward fallback adjustment of the clock to the shrinking and growing amount of daylight. And it irritates me because, as I pointed out in a column that I wrote 6 months ago, for Deadline, it's one thing to say, yeah, it would be great if it was light later in the evening in the wintertime. We should keep daylight saving time year round, which is, it would be nice to not have it be full dark at 5:15. It'd be nice. It would be full dark at 6:15, and that would be, maybe somewhat cheerier. But the difference would be that the sun would not come up until 9 o'clock in the morning, at least at this latitude. And if you want little children walking to school, at 8 o'clock in the morning in full darkness, that's going to have to be on you. The fact is, I have this Apple Watch and I have the solar dial here, which informs me every day on how much the day is either shrinking or expanding. Today, we have 9 hours and 53 minutes of daylight. By the time the solstice rolls around, it'll be down to a little over 9. And there's you just can't make that stretch and make the sunshine actually be protected. So I don't want to rant too much on this.
Well,
Marco Rubio, the hell with you, schmuck.
I think you need to get Hot Tub Marco a waterproof watch there, Nancy. I think he'll accept it for Christmas. Okay. What do we got? Mike.
Okay, well, you had Trump up there, and every week if I was on, it would be Trump, but I'll try to come up with somebody different. How about as my I love Joy Reid, and she refers to the little punk as Tuckums Carlson. How about Tuckums Carlson? Okay, I heard him. I heard a snippet on him ripping on the Department of Transportation Secretary Buttigieg about the racism that went into our infrastructure many decades ago, and Tuckums was rhetorically asking, how can a road be racist? It's an inanimate object. No, stupid. It was the engineering decisions that went into the roads and the bridges that were racist, you moron. So it's Tuckums Carlson.
Come visit 375.
Okay.
That's so funny.
ML?
He's
ML,
muted.
You're muted, ML. Mute. Well, somebody
Muted.
wake him
Michael,
up.
let's mute him.
Mute
Okay,
him.
Alan, go ahead.
Right. We a technical issue there. Well, Tuckums Carlson would be my geek every week too, but I'm going to go with Julia Hurricane Hawkins, who set a world record in the 100 meters last Sunday. She ran the 100-meter race in 1 minute and 2 seconds and complained that she wanted to do it under 1 minute. She's 105 years old. And if I could get out of my chair at 105, I'd be satisfied. I wouldn't be bitching about not doing a sub-minute 100. So, Hurricane, I salute you, but you're still my schmuck of the week. Some of us have a lot bigger fish to fry.
A 105-year-old woman, ML? Come on, bro.
That's the only one I can beat now.
I think you set the record, mate. I don't think we've ever had a centenarian be schmuck of the week. Alan, you're the archivist.
It will be very difficult for her to repeat.
Yes, I don't think we can top that.
I don't think that. I mean, that might be one of. Oh my goodness, that schmuck of the week is wrong. It's just wrong.
I agree, Todd. That's just wrong, ML.
So
I'm
Todd,
coming from a place of deep hurt and anger.
When I'm 100 and how old is she? 102?
105.
105. When
So
I'm
Todd,
105, I intend to get drunk at an MSU MU tailgate.
well, Todd,
and throw up.
But
now
it
that
does-
ML has taken your schmuck of the week, who's going to be your runner-up?
Who's
Are you
that?
talking-
Todd.
Oh yeah. Well, I just one thing about it. It made me not as angry when I hear ML about a schmuck of the week. I mean, it does. It gives. I think he's giving a platform to that lady, and I'm sure that's how he means it. But that is something that's priceless right there. I'm going to save that schmuck of the week. That's great. It really is. In a good way.
Opposite of what Willard Scott would do. So
Right.
In a good way. So my schmuck of the week went between Judge Bruce Schroeder and Kevin Goff. Kevin Goff is the lawyer for in the Ahmaud Arbery trial, and the Judge Schroeder is the one. I just can't figure out which one says the most racist things. So I was looking up during the show. I'm doing a little research on my schmuck of the week because I just couldn't come down to who's the biggest asshole. But I think I'm going to go with, because you guys already dealt with him talking about the Chinese, the Asian food that he described. He's trying to be politically correct, but still a racist in that regard. That's what the judge. But I'm going to go with Kevin Goff. Kevin Goff just recently, within a couple of hours, has apologized and saying what he didn't mean because he's being eviscerated over the internet about his statements about the black pastor. And I'm one for being a Catholic. I am one for, retribution and being able to serve penance. And, I'm away from the Renaissance age of indulgences. But again, he's acknowledged his smuckness by his just recanting of that statement. Own it, dude. I mean, you said it. Own it. You know what I'm saying? I don't have a problem saying white guy, white boy, black, because I don't feel anything about it other than the descriptive nature in which I mean it. If he meant it that way and his heart meant it that way, which it truly didn't, he was coming for a chilling effect. He thought he was gonna rise up the Trumpians of that community and rise up and rally behind him. But they're all cowards anyway. You know what I'm saying? They are. And so they ran, and now he's by himself, and now he's left to answer the mic. And what does he answer with the recanting of what he said? It's good that he recanted it. He should do that. But again, he's acknowledged him being a smuck. I own my smuckiness, and he deserves to be the schmuck of the week.
Well, at least he didn't use the Marion Barry defense, so there's some saving grace there.
Oh no, which one? The boy who said, "Bitch, you set me up."
The bitch set me up.
Yes, that would be the one. I don't think he had a second defense. Alan.
I'm going to go. I was going to go with Joe Manchin, who's opposing. Who's just driving the Democrats crazy.
That was my second choice, Alan.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
The guy is such a lightweight, and he's like one of these blue dog Democrats or whatever, has suddenly become a player. And usually the blue dog Democrats are lightweights, like Gary Condit in California. There were a lot of them. But here's a guy who he's opposing a part of a bill that was sponsored by Debbie Stabenow and Kilday to provide like incentives, like I think it was a $4,300 tax incentive for people who buy electric vehicles, for union-made electrical vehicles. And he was outraged. He went over to Debbie Stabenow and said, look, these cars should be sold on the merits alone. And Debbie Stabenow said, 2 years ago, you came to us to try to save the pensions of coal miners. And it wasn't a popular thing, but it was the right thing. And we did that to help the coal miners in West Virginia. And the guy is, I don't know, the guy's a thief, first of all. I mean, he's making tons of money off the coal industry. He's trying to sabotage clean energy. I think he's a disgrace in the Senate. And he's only been uplifted. I mean, he's now a very prominent figure because he's a swing vote in so many ways.
Yeah.
Let's sink his houseboat.
Remember, he's been my Schmuck of the Week a couple of times though.
Yeah.
He's pretty notorious here. Like I said, I mean, it'll never be another 105-year-old woman, I'm sure, who's going to be kind of the unicorn Schmuck of the Week. But Manchin and Trump and everybody else is certainly there. Well, my Schmucks of the Week are Travis Scott, Drake, Kim Kardashian, Kylie Jenner, and all the promoters of the Astroworld Festival, which has now already claimed 9 lives and may well, unfortunately, lead to some more deaths with the people who are in ICU, some of them in comas, and some of them are actually showing no brain activity. The handling of this festival was egregious enough, or the mishandling. The fact that Travis Scott played on for another 37 minutes. The fact that Drake apparently went to a strip club in order to then cope with the horror of something that he helped to co-organize. Kim Kardashian's tone-deaf tweet that Travis really loves and cares for his fans. And Kylie Jenner, his baby mama, tweeting, well, I was okay. So, yeah, I think collectively they deserve to be this week.
No
it
doubt.
was pretty bad.
You know, he was cited before for inciting a concert or something, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was incited he was actually arrested a couple times, and I believe in Switzerland about 6 years ago, he stopped a concert because someone was trying to grab one of the Yeezys off his feet. And then he, in fact, incited the crowd to beat up on the person who was trying to purloin said shoe.
How can you get close enough to a performer at a standard concert to try to get the shoes off their feet?
Probably because he let him.
Yeah, that's true.
You know,
he's probably down in the crowd. Yeah.
Or you've obviously never seen those fly fishermen in the third row who cast another shoe.
I was thinking that in The Life of Brian. I got his shoe.
Exactly. Great reference. Well, listen, we've come to the end of this week's The Week That Was. I want to thank Mike Ratai, Todd Perkins, ML Elric, and of course, Nancy Derringer for being here. And the last word, Alan.
Drive home safely.
Excellent. Take care, everyone.
The Week That Was on Deadline Detroit is made possible in part by Lynette's Shrimp House located in Highland Park. It's Metro Detroit's premier destination serving juicy fried shrimp, fish, and wings, alongside soul food sides and new additions to the menu like turkey tacos and desserts. Located at 13548 Woodward in Highland Park, just north off the Davidson, Lynette's is open for takeaway. Call now, get some Lynette's.